I was at my desk at AM, building a financial empire, when my phone buzzed with 37 photos from the Family Adventures group chat. My father, my stepmother, and my siblings were all at the Grand Canyon, a trip I wasn't even invited to. They thought I was the forgotten daughter, still struggling to make ends meet. They didn't know I just closed a multi-million-dollar deal. So, instead of crying, I opened my laptop and booked a $28,000 private villa in the Maldives. But not for the family who shared those photos. I booked it for the only two people who actually raised me. And wait until you see the look on my father's face when he found out. My name is Audrey. I am 38 years old. I am the chief financial officer of a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. Last year, I made $380,000. I live in a townhouse I own outright. I have a career I am proud of and a life that is stable and successful and entirely mine. I also have a family that has been taking vacations without me for 6 years. My mother died when I was 16, ovarian cancer. Fast and brutal and unfair in the way that cancer is always unfair. She had been sick for 11 months. By the end, she was so thin I could see the shape of her skull through her skin. My father, Michael, was not equipped to handle her death. He went through the motions, showed up at the funeral, accepted casseroles from neighbors, went back to work 2 weeks later. But the part of him that had been present before she got sick simply disappeared. He was there physically, came home at night, sat at the dinner table, asked if I had homework, but he was not there in any way that mattered. He was a man going through programmed responses. Wake up, go to work, come home, exist, repeat. I learned to handle things myself, made my own meals, did my own laundry, kept the house running, applied to colleges without help, filled out financial aid forms with my mother's death certificate and my father's tax returns, and the particular kind of grief that makes you very good at paperwork because focusing on details means not thinking about anything else. I got into a state school, full scholarship. I moved into the dorms 3 days after graduation. My father helped me carry boxes up the stairs, said good luck, drove away. We talked on the phone every few weeks during college. Surface conversations. How are classes? Fine. How is work? Fine. The kind of dialogue that fills time without requiring emotional investment from either party. I graduated with honors, got a job at a consulting firm in Chicago, moved into a small apartment, started building a life. Michael met Carolyn when I was 24. She was 42, a widow with 2 teenage children. Jake was 15. Emma was 13. They had lost their father 2 years earlier to a heart attack. Michael and Carolyn met at a grief support group. They understood each other in ways that Michael and I had never understood each other. They both knew what it was like to lose someone, to keep functioning, to build something new from the ruins of something that had been taken away. They started dating, got engaged after 8 months, married 6 months after that. I met Carolyn and her children twice before the wedding. She was pleasant, asked polite questions about my job, smiled when I answered. Jake and Emma were polite teenagers, said hello, said thank you, looked at their phones. At the wedding reception, Michael gave a speech, talked about second chances, about finding love again, about the blessing of gaining 2 children who needed a father and giving them a family. He did not mention me, not in the speech, not in the thank you remarks, not in any of the carefully crafted narrative about building a new life. I was simply not part of the story he was telling. I told myself it did not matter, that I was an adult, that I did not need to be included in my father's new life, that being independent was good, healthy, normal. I was lying to myself, but I was good at it by then. The first family vacation without me happened when I was 26. Disney World. Michael, Carolyn, Jake, and Emma. A week in Florida. I learned about it from a Facebook post Carolyn made. Photos of all of them in front of the castle. I had not been invited, had not been told they were going. Just saw the photos and understood that family vacations now meant the 4 of them. I called Michael the next week, asked about the trip. He said it had been great, said the kids had loved it, said they were already planning another trip next year. Next time I could come, I said, trying to keep my voice light, casual, not desperate. These trips are really for the kids, Michael said. You understand. You are an adult. You have your own life. I understood. The second vacation was to Yellowstone, the third to the beach, the fourth to Washington, D.C. Every year a new destination, every year photos in the group chat, every year proof that I was not part of the family that mattered. By the time I was 30, I had stopped calling, stopped asking about the trips, stopped pretending I did not notice that I was systematically excluded from every family gathering that required planning or money or effort. I still showed up for the obligatory events. Thanksgiving at their house, Christmas morning, Jake and Emma's high school graduations. I brought gifts, made polite conversation, left as soon as it was acceptable. No one asked me to stay longer. No one seemed to notice when I left. I threw myself into work, got promoted twice in 3 years, moved to a better apartment, then a townhouse, built a career that gave me purpose and structure and success that was measurable in ways that family never had been. I dated, had relationships that lasted months or sometimes a year. Good people, kind people, people who wanted more than I knew how to give because I had learned early that investing too much in people meant being disappointed when they chose someone else. I was not bitter, not exactly, just careful, guarded, the kind of person who had learned that independence was safer than hope. And then I met Susan. Susan Chen was my mother's best friend. They had met in college, stayed close through marriages and moves and the particular challenges of adult life. Susan had been there when my mother got sick, had driven her to appointments when my father was working, had sat with her during chemo, had held her hand at the end. After my mother died, Susan kept in touch, called every few months, sent birthday cards, invited me to dinner when she was in Chicago for work. She never pushed, never asked probing questions, just maintained a quiet, steady presence that said I was still family to her even if my own family had moved on. When I was 32, Susan's husband Tom had a stroke. Massive. He survived but needed extensive care. Susan became his full-time caregiver, quit her job, rearranged her life. I started visiting more often, helped with errands, drove Tom to physical therapy appointments, sat with Susan in hospital waiting rooms, not because I had to, because they were the people who had shown up for my mother, who had shown up for me, who treated me like family even when my actual family did not. Susan and Tom did not have children. They had never wanted them. They had each other and their friends and a life they had built together. When Tom recovered enough to function with modified independence, they started talking about the things they wanted to do while they still could. Travel, adventures, seeing places they had put off for too many years. They could not afford it. Tom's medical bills had drained their savings. Their retirement accounts were depleted. The care he still needed was expensive. They were managing, but there was nothing left over for vacations or dreams or anything that was not strictly necessary. I thought about that a lot. About two people who had been there for my mother and for me, who had earned the right to have adventures, who deserved to see the world but could not because life had been expensive and cruel and unfair. I thought about my father taking his new family to the Grand Canyon while I sat at my desk at 7:30 in the morning looking at photos I had not been invited to take, and I made a decision. I called Susan on a Friday afternoon in July. How? Would you and Tom like to go to the Maldives? There was a pause. What? The Maldives. I want to send you on a vacation. 2 weeks, a private villa, everything included. My treat. Audrey, we cannot accept that. You are not accepting anything. I am giving it to you because I want to, because you were there for my mother, because you have been there for me, because you deserve to have something beautiful after everything you have been through. That is too generous. It is exactly generous enough. Susan was quiet for a long time. I could hear Tom in the background asking what was happening. Are you sure? She said finally. Her voice was thick, emotional. I am completely sure. I booked it that afternoon. A water villa at the Sonavayani Resort, private pool, glass floor looking down at the ocean, butler service. 2 weeks in September, $28,000 including flights and transfers and everything they would need. I did not tell my father, did not post about it, did not announce it to anyone except Susan and Tom, just sent them the confirmation and told them to have the time of their lives. They left on September 12th. I got daily updates, photos of sunsets over the Indian Ocean, videos of Tom snorkeling with sea turtles, pictures of Susan on the deck of the villa with a book and a cocktail and the kind of peace that only comes from being exactly where you are supposed to be. She sent me a voice message on day 5. She was crying, happy tears, saying she could not believe this was real, that she kept thinking she would wake up and it would be a dream, that this was the most beautiful place she had ever seen and she would never forget that I had given this to them. I listened to it 3 times, felt something in my chest that had been tight for years finally start to loosen. This was what family was supposed to be. Not obligation, not tolerance, not being included when convenient and excluded when not. This was choice, gratitude, love given freely to people who had earned it. My father found out because Carolyn saw the photos on Facebook. Susan had posted a few pictures, tagged me in one with a caption that said, "Thank you to our amazing Audrey for the gift of a lifetime." Carolyn showed Michael. Michael called me. "Did you send Susan and Tom to the Maldives?" "Yes." "That must have cost a fortune. $28,000. There was a long silence. "That is a lot of money." "It is money I have. Money I chose to spend on people who have been family to me when my actual family has not. That is not fair, Audrey. We have included you in things. You have included me in obligatory holiday meals where I sit at the table for 2 hours and leave. You have not included me in a single vacation in 12 years. Not once. And I am done pretending that is normal or acceptable. We thought you were busy with work. You thought I would not notice, or that I would not care. But I did notice, and I do care, and I am done accepting the scraps of attention you offer while you build a life with your real family." Jake and Emma are children. We're children. They needed attention. I was a child once too. I was 16 when Mom died. You disappeared. You were there physically, but you were gone in every way that mattered. And when you found Carolyn and her kids, you finally came back to life, but not for me, for them. You became the father I needed when I was 16. But you became that father for children who were not yours. And I was just supposed to accept it. Michael's voice was strained. I did the best I could. No, you did not. You did the minimum. And then you built a new family and excluded me from it. And that was your choice. So I made my choice. I chose to give $28,000 to people who actually showed up for me, who treated me like family, who earned it. That money could have been used for Jake's college, or Emma's. That money is mine. I earned it, and I will spend it how I choose, on people I choose, and those people are not you. I hung up. He called back 3 times. I did not answer. Carolyn sent me a message, said I was being unfair, that family was complicated, that I needed to understand that Michael had been dealing with a lot, that Jake and Emma had needed stability, that I was an adult and should be more mature about this. I blocked her number. Jake sent me a text 2 days later. "Hey Audrey, I heard about what happened. I just want you to know that I never meant to replace you. I did not know Dad was not including you in stuff. That sucks." I looked at the message for a long time. Jake was 27 now, an adult, old enough to understand family dynamics, old enough to have noticed that his older sister was never invited on family trips. But he was also young enough that maybe he genuinely had not realized. Maybe he had just thought I was busy. Maybe he had not questioned why I was never there. I typed back, "Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it." He responded, "For what it is worth, I always thought you were cool. I wish we had gotten to know each other better." Me too. That was the end of the conversation. But it was more than I had gotten from Michael or Carolyn. An acknowledgement, a small gesture toward connection. It did not change anything, but it was something. Emma did not reach out. Neither did Michael again. The family group chat continued. Photos from other trips, other adventures. I was still included in the chat but no longer looked at the messages, just muted it. Let the notifications pile up and read. Susan and Tom came home in late September. They drove to Chicago to see me, took me to dinner, spent 3 hours showing me photos and videos and telling me stories about the resort and the food and the people they had met. Susan cried again, told me she had never imagined she would see a place like that it had been the trip of a lifetime, that she would never be able to repay me. "You already repaid me," I said. "You were there for my mom. You have been there for me. You do not owe me anything. This was my choice." Tom shook my hand. His grip was still weak from the stroke, but his eyes were clear. "You are a remarkable woman, Audrey. Your mother would be so proud of who you have become." That was the sentence that broke me. Not Susan's tears or the photos or the gratitude. Just that simple statement. Your mother would be proud. I excused myself to the bathroom, stood in the stall and cried quietly. Let myself feel all the grief I had been carrying for 22 years. All the loss and abandonment and the particular loneliness of being the child your parent forgot about. When I came back to the table, Susan looked at me with the kind of understanding that only comes from having known someone's mother, from having loved her, from missing her too. She would be proud, Susan said quietly, and she would be furious at Michael, but mostly she would be proud. Because you turned out beautifully despite everything. I nodded, could not speak, just nodded. We finished dinner, said goodbye. I drove home alone. My townhouse was quiet, clean, everything in its place. The life I had built for myself without anyone's help. I did not regret spending $28,000 on Susan and Tom. I did not regret cutting off Michael and Carolyn. I did not regret any of it. I only regretted that it had taken me so long to understand that family was not about blood. It was about showing up, about choosing each other, about being present in ways that mattered. Michael had not been present. He had checked out when my mother died and never checked back in. Not for me. He had saved his emotional availability for children who were not his, had built a second family and carefully excluded his first daughter from it. That was his choice, and I had finally accepted it. I made my own choice. To invest in people who had invested in me, to build connections with people who saw me, who valued me, who did not need me to be convenient or quiet or grateful for scraps of attention. Susan and Tom were my family, not by blood, not by law, but by choice, by presence, by 22 years of showing up, and they deserve the Maldives far more than Michael deserved my forgiveness. I am 40 now. 2 years past the Grand Canyon photos. 2 years past the decision to stop pretending my father's new family included me. I still work at the pharmaceutical company. Got promoted to CFO 18 months ago. My compensation is now close to $500,000. I live in the same townhouse. Build a life that is stable and successful and entirely mine. I see Susan and Tom regularly. Holidays, dinners, random weekends when we all have time. They are the family I call when something good happens, when something bad happens, when I need advice or company or just someone who remembers my mother. Michael sends a text on my birthday every year, a generic message. Hope you have a great day. Nothing personal, nothing that requires him to actually think about who I am or what my life looks like. I respond with a thumbs up emoji, nothing more. Jake follows me on social media, likes my posts occasionally. We are friendly in the distant way that siblings are friendly when they grew up in different families wearing the same last name. Emma never reached out. Neither did Carolyn. The family group chat is still active. I am still in it, muted, unread, a digital ghost haunting a conversation I am no longer part of. I do not care. I have built a life without them. A good life. A life where the people who matter show up. Where I am seen and valued and loved not because I share DNA but because I chose them and they chose me back. Susan and Tom talk about the Maldives constantly, show the photos to everyone, tell stories about snorkeling and sunsets and the villa with the glass floor. They say it changed their perspective, made them realize they could still have adventures, still see beautiful things, still build memories. That trip cost $28,000. It was worth every penny. Not because of the resort or the ocean or the luxury, but because it was proof that I could take care of the people who had taken care of me, that I could give back to the ones who had given to me, that I could build a family based on love and choice instead of obligation and disappointment. Michael chose his path. He chose to build a life with Carolyn and her children and to let me drift into the background of that life, to include me only when it was easy, to exclude me when it required effort. I chose mine. I chose Susan and Tom. I chose a life where showing up mattered more than biology, where presence mattered more than last names. Some people might say I was petty, that I spent $28,000 on a vacation to prove a point, that I should have used that money to build bridges instead of burning them. Those people do not understand what it is like to see photos of your family on vacation after vacation and realize you were never considered for any of them. To understand that you are expendable, optional, the child your parent forgot when they built their second chance. I did not spend $28,000 to prove a point. I spent it to honor the people who honored my mother, who honored me, who showed up when showing up mattered. That is not petty. That is justice. Quiet, personal, complete. Here is what I want to know. If your family excluded you from vacations for years and you finally had the money to do something extravagant for the people who actually raised you, would you do it? Some people say you should always try to fix broken family relationships. Others say that some relationships are not worth fixing. Do you think I was wrong to spend that money on Susan and Tom instead of trying to reconcile with my father? And the question that keeps me awake sometimes, if you were the kid who got excluded from family trips while your parent built a new family, would you have walked away sooner? Or would you have kept trying? Tell me your honest answer in the comments. If you believe people should face the consequences of their actions, hit subscribe. I have got more stories of justice that will blow your mind.